Hi guitarlings, I'm Gray at Hub Guitar. Today we're going to do that classic tune, the Irish Washerwoman, arranged for solo fingerstyle guitar. So here we go. Alright, so a few things about this tune from the start. One is it's in an altered tuning called Dad-Gad. So that's D-A-D, G-A-D. So to get to Dad-Gad, you're going to tune your, first of all, you're going to go to drop D, so you're going to tune your 6th string down to D. You can do that by matching it with your D string. And while you're at it, might as well tune your high E string down to D. Match that to your D string as well, then you've only got one more change to make. You're going to tune your 2nd string down to A. So you can do that by matching it to your A string. If you feel comfortable doing that by ear, you can do it that way. A lot of people prefer to use a tuner, and that's fine. I'm also going to use a capo on the 2nd fret, but that's optional. Alright, we're going to start with a pickup on the 1st string, and then we're going to go to this G major chord. So I've got my 1st finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string, 2nd finger on the 5th fret of the big string, and 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string. And it goes like this. And then after I play that, I lift up the 3rd string so I can get the open string. But don't lift up these other two yet. Once you've played that open string, you're just going to shuffle your 2nd finger back down to the 5th fret of the 5th string and play the other 3 notes. So this is a 6/8 meter, so you should hear each measure as 2 strong beats divided into 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, dot, 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 dot. Make sure you play it with that time feel throughout. For measure 2, we've still got the G chord, so we're going to go back to the original G chord shape. And we can play that first set of notes without even moving the chord. Then we've got to get to 5 and 4. You could do that with your pinky if you want to maximize your efficiency. But at that point, because it's at the end of the measure, it's kind of fine if you lift up and use a couple other fingers to do that. For measure 3, we're going to put our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and play that with an open 5th string. Then we're going to put our index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and then we're going to lift up the 2nd string to get that open as well. And so the fingering here is a little bit weird, but the fingering that I suggest is you keep that index finger there on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string and sort of overstep your middle finger onto the 2nd fret of the 4th string and follow through. So that lets you kind of maximize the number of notes that are ringing at once, which sounds satisfying in solo guitar music. For measure 4, we've got a D7, but we're going to do a big slide. So we're going to start with, I've suggested your 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the open D. And then you're going to play the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Repeat the 2nd string and slide all the way up to 7 before following through with an open 1st string. And then at the very end, you put the 5th fret of the 3rd string in place. So if you can maximize the number of notes ringing at once, it sounds pretty cool. They kind of all blend together nicely. For measure 5, we go back to the G that we started it all with. In fact, it's the same as measure 1. And measure 6 is the same as measure 2. Measures 7 and 8 have the cadence before we go to the next section, so let's look at that. We can put our 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and our 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. Repeat the 2nd string and then use our index finger to get the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Play the open 1st string and then repeat the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. Notice that I kept that finger there for the whole measure. It kind of maximizes my efficiency if I minimize the amount of times I have to move fingers around. So I just plant that finger there for the whole measure, and then I go back to my G chord for measure 8. So let's hear that all together. we've got a little pickup note on the open third string, and then we're going to go to the next half of the tune. Alright, so starting at measure 9, we're going to play a hammer-on and pull-off. So I'm going to prepare that by putting my index finger on the 4th fret of the 1st string and my 2nd finger on the 5th fret of the 1st string. And I'm going to pluck that with the 3rd string and pull off to the 4th fret and hammer back on. And then I'm going to quickly get into position for the other 3 notes. Notice I'm playing those like a chord because I've got my middle finger on the 4th string, index finger on the 3rd string, and ring finger on the 2nd string. For measure 3, I repeat that pull-off hammer-on, and then I get my pinky to the 9th fret of the high string. And then I use my middle finger to play 7 and 5 with my index finger. You could also do that as a pull-off if that feels natural to you. And then for measure 11, notice that there's a half bar for the D7. So I'm at the 7th fret with my bar, and I'm going to put my index finger across really just the 2nd and 3rd and 4th strings so that I can reach the open 6th string and the open 1st string. That's important. Now you can use your pinky or your 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the 2nd string. And then once you've got that chord in shape, in place, the whole measure is just a plucking around the chord. And then we jump to measure 12, put our index at the 4th fret of the high string, 2nd finger at the 5th fret of the 2nd string, repeat the 4th fret, 7th fret with open, 5 and 4. That could be a pull-off too if you want. So at measure 13, I'm going to put my thumb on the 2nd fret of the 6th string and my index finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. Play those two together, and then play the open 1st string back to the 2nd fret. So I use my thumb to get the flexibility to do that. If I were to use a bar, I would lose the bass note as soon as I lift up. Now I'm going to get to the D chord pretty quickly by putting my middle finger on the 4th fret of the big string and pinky finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. And I'm going to keep the bass walking up for measure 14. I've got my 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the big string and my index finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And then for the G, I'm going to just get back into that original G shape. Although I'm only going to use 2 fingers because I don't need the 5th fret note anymore on the other string. And then for my D7 on measure 15, I'm actually going to use my index finger for the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. So that I can quickly get to this bass note here with my middle finger with the open string and keep my index finger available to come back to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And then from there I'm going to go back to my G at measure 16 just by sliding up my middle finger from 4 to 5 and then putting my index finger on the 4th fret. So it's almost like it ends with the same shape except I've got to slide up 1 fret and then tuck that finger in 1 string. Measure 16 is just the G chord that we started with. So let's hear that all together for the second half. Alright, so that's it for the Irish Washerwoman. This is a pretty fast jig, and it's supposed to go at a pretty fast tempo, but it's quite hard to play it fast as a solo guitar player. So slow it down, work through those fingerings and those changes, and then gradually try to get the speed back up there. That's it for the Irish Washerwoman. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks so much for watching.